guys, so this video has been in the works for a while now and I'm finally sitting down to do it. I'm going to share with you my top thrifting tips. I always get comments on all of my thrift hauls. How do you have such luck? Where do you go? What do you do? Like, what do you look for? How do you find the pieces that you find? And I never thought of myself as someone who was a good thrifter, because if you compare how I thrift to everyone else here on YouTube that does thrift with me, for instance, I'm a lazy thrifter, let's be real. I am not the kind of person to spend over an hour, if you know anything more than half an hour in a thrift store. I just like to get in, look for things, get out. If I don't find anything, I don't find anything. So I guess these are like tips for lazy people that want to go thrifting and find really cool things but don't really know what to look at if they only have a limited amount of time. So my first tip is related to one of my lazy things, which you'd think it wouldn't be that lazy, but I'm not the kind of girl to have a shopping cart in a thrift store. I will if I have a friend there and we're both putting stuff in the cart, that's one thing, but I don't grab a cart. I think having a cart is kind of weird, pushing it through a thrift store. I don't know, I'm lazy. I don't want to have a cart, and I also don't want to hold a lot of things, so I don't know. Like I said, I'm a really weird thrifter, okay? But this tip I think is really relevant to everyone. So what I do, because I don't want to have a cart and I don't want to carry heavy things, is I start in the sections of things that I might want to try on. This is usually the jeans for me. I will start in the jeans section and give it a pass through, and if I have anything that I want to try on, I will go try it on right then. I don't wait until the end of my thrift trip to try everything on. That's mostly because I know what tops will fit me, I know what sweaters will fit me, jackets, things like that. Shoes I try on in the aisle. But when it comes to pants, those I need to try on in the fitting rooms. Another reason why I start with the things that I want to try on in the beginning of my thrift trip is because towards the end you might feel a little lazy or tired and you're less likely to go into the fitting rooms and actually try things on. When you start out with your energy, your thrifting energy, you know what you're getting into, that's the time to try on things. So start the pants or dresses or wherever. The only downside to this is, like I said, I don't like to carry around heavy things, and if I do find pants that I really like, I am then carrying them around. Sometimes I'll have a basket though, like the hand baskets. Still no cart. No. And on kind of the same idea as this is I end with the shoes and the homewares. Now, sometimes when I thrift, it really depends on the layout of the store, and I kind of work the edges first and then I'll go into the center if I even want to go into the center at all. Usually that's women's clothes, and fun fact, I skip the women's clothes most of the time. So ideally you would end with the shoes and the homewares because those are more awkward to carry and just, I don't know, I don't really want to be lugging around heavy shoes, things like that. Now my third tip is when it comes to sizing, don't just look in your size. Look at the size below you and the size above you. Thrifting sizes are never accurate. Most of the pants that I have thrifted that I own are a size up from my normal size if I were to go into a store at the mall. So you never know what's going to fit you, so you might as well check all those sizes and see what you find. And for some weird reason, this applies to shoes too. I have found multiple pairs of size 7 boots that, yeah, they're a little tight, but they're not as tight as if I went to like a shoe store and tried them on. I don't know why that is. Maybe they're stretched out a little bit from other people wearing them. I don't know, but it works. I don't know. Number 4 is my biggest thrift tip and how I feel like I save the most time in a thrift store, and that is if you are pressed for time or you're a lazy thrifter like me and don't want to look at every single item, look at color and texture and what speaks to you. Usually you can tell if you're gonna like a garment by the side of it. You know, when they're hanging like this, you can kind of look at it and say, oh, I like this color, what is that? If I do decide to go into the women's section, this is the technique that I use because I will pretty much know instantly if it's a color or texture that I like, and then I go from there and pull it out. I do not ever look at every single item. I think that's a waste of time. I just browse visually at a glance. You can kind of get a feel. Granted, I've probably missed a lot of items doing this as opposed to other thrifters who do look at every single item, and sometimes you need to give it that chance. But I don't do that. I don't know. I'm a lazy person. I don't have time to sit there and look at every single thing. So I'm going to look at the colors and textures and fabrics that I feel speak to me. Tip number 5 is do not ignore the lingerie and pajamas section. I know it sounds gross to think about, and you know, most of it probably is, you know, maybe don't buy underwear at the thrift store. Sometimes robes can be worn as like overshirts or something to, or like a cover up that can be worn out. It doesn't have to just be worn as a robe at home. I found really cute vintage lingerie there. You can find really cute bralettes. I found some bralettes there that are pretty decent. And I found a bathing suit top there before, so, and I wore that all the time. So you never really know what you're gonna find in the lingerie pajamas. Oh, and some of my favorite pajama pants have come from the thrift store. I don't necessarily look at the gross items. I don't look at fitness clothes, for instance, or workout clothes, unless it's like a sweatshirt or something. I don't look at swimsuit bottoms and underwear and things like that. I think it's a little bit too risky. But I do look at the bralettes, the bras, the swimsuit tops, the robes, things like that. Tip number 6 is be open-minded to the potential of an item. Sometimes at first glance, we don't instantly fall in love with something. And that's perfectly okay, and sometimes we just need to walk away from those things. And that's most of the thrift store, to be honest. But if flare pants aren't your thing, can they be turned into shorts? Or if they're a little bit too long, can you do the trendy thing now where you just cut the hem off and let it fray in the wash? Or what I like to do with some pants that are a little bit too weird shaped is sometimes they work really well as mom jeans and you just have to cuff the bottoms. You can add distressing, cuts in the knees, whatever you want to do to like really transform the pants, you know? Oversized shirts can be turned into muscle tees or crop tops, or even just roll the sleeves and tie the front in a knot. You don't even have to cut up the shirt. And then when it's not cut up, it can be a really great sleep shirt. You know, there's a lot of versatility in those weird items that maybe you would deem ugly and, you know, don't have a lot of potential, but I think you'd be surprised. Tip number 7 is don't judge a thrift store by its cover. If you see a family-owned church store, a smaller place, a church thrift store, things like that, or even like an animal shelter thrift store, those typically have really good gems. You're more likely to write these places off because they're not a mainstream thrift store and people on YouTube don't go to those thrift stores, but let me tell you, I do. I found my Megadeth band tee at one of these kinds of stores. It was owned by a church, believe it or not, and then I also found this sweater right here from a animal shelter thrift store. So you just never know, and don't just judge it by the outside because you don't know who's donated there, what they've donated. Okay, number 8 is going to be a little bit contradictory to something that I said in my Thrift With Me vlog, which I will link up here if you haven't seen that yet, but location, location, location. It really does kind of make a difference where you go. As I mentioned in that video, there's a nicer thrift store near me that doesn't have as good things as the one that's in kind of the sketchier area of where I live. So I don't personally, you know, judge a thrift store based on its location, but sometimes that can be relevant depending who you are, what kind of thrifter you are. If you're new to thrifting, it can get overwhelmed really easily, or if you are a little bit more particular and you like the nicer brands and the nicer items, because sometimes you don't necessarily want to buy something with a stain and have to work it out yourself, or you just don't like the idea of thrifting as much. I recommend you go to consignment stores in nice areas. I think that is where you hit most of the jackpot for the really nice items. I have found most of the things that I wear on a day-to-day basis that are thrifted at a consignment store because they, you know, skim through all the stuff that people want to donate, and they will purchase things from those people that are pretty decent, fashionable, in season, things like that. And then they will resell them for, you know, more expensive than they bought it from them. It's definitely more expensive than a regular old thrift store and a Goodwill. But if you're more picky of a thrifter, definitely start with consignment stores. Tip number 9 is if you think that you're going to try something on, which you probably will, even if you think that you won't, you just never know if you're going to need to try something on. I recommend wearing neutral clothing, shoes you can slip on and off. This seems like a given, but I find that I try stuff on way more thrifting than I do like going to the mall or like a store, you know, one of those stores. It just makes it easier to get in and out of the clothes that you're going to be trying on, and I mean, it's not that important, I feel, but I just thought it would be a good tip to throw in there, something to think about, because thrifting is something where you definitely need to try on clothes way more than you would if you were just shopping at a normal store. Tip number 10 is something that's just kind of very individual to me and not really a tip at all. It's just something that I thought I would mention. I don't necessarily like to always carry a bag when I'm thrifting. I like to have my arms free, and like backpacks are great, but still there's like, you bump people with it. So I prefer to be hands-free and bag-free. So what I usually wear is this guy right here. I wear this jacket a lot thrifting. I actually found it at a Goodwill. It has these big ass deep pockets that I just throw my wallet, my keys, and my phone in, and I am good to go. And my final tip is a hygiene tip. Always carry hand sanitizer with you because you are touching sometimes dirty clothes, and I know that thought is gross and it doesn't really help, you know, the people who are sketched out by thrifting, but it's really easy to just sanitize your hands as soon as you're done at a store before you go on to the next one. And this tip is something that I have implemented in my life, no matter where I go, is whenever you get home from being outdoors and at a public place, wash your hands. This is very, very important just in general, and I know it sounds preachy and like, oh, it's flu season still, you know, you don't want to get sick, but no, really, you don't want to get sick. So just wash your hands when you get home from going out. But, fun fact, I don't always wash my thrift clothes before I wear them. Anyway, there are my top 11-ish tips that I would recommend to keep in mind when you are thrifting. I know it can be kind of challenging. You have to be in the right mindset. Although I've kind of gotten to a place where it's very casual for me and I just kind of browse around. I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to find something. If you don't, you don't. It's just how it goes. Let me know your top tips down below in the comments. If you are a thrifter or you're into thrifting and you have something to share, I would love to hear your tips down below. I hope you guys enjoyed my tips and I will talk to you soon. Bye.